All right, December 2022, coming back from the gym. You can see I have a headlight on because electricity is a 50-50 thing there, and I go before dawn now, starting my day earlier. My routine at work changed, shifting more towards European hours versus American working hours. So I have to start everything earlier, but I finish the day earlier, and I can work on my side hustle at night. You know, you have to find that second wind at night, because the first instinct is come home, eat, and relax, watch TV, you know, hang out with the missus, all that kind of thing. But when you're doing a side hustle, you have to dig deep and find that second wind, and that usually roots itself in fitness, you know, being especially cardiovascularly fit and everything, so you have efficient blood circulation, you know. And anyway, it feels good, you know, because it can eat you up sometimes. You know, it's not so bad that the electricity is out, but it's not knowing. We don't have a schedule yet. Some parts of the city have a schedule when they get electricity, and that would be huge, because then we can plan and we can organize the day, especially if we knew 1, 2, 3 days before what's happening. Then, you know, we can plan things. But now, you know, we have to improvise. You know, we're using, you know, lights like this at the gym, you know, just so I can work out and you know, get around the apartment. You know, we have a couple flashlights and everything. We are getting enough energy to keep the apartment warm. You know, it's all fired up by gas, but the boiler requires an electric spark to, you know, turn on. And I have a smart home system, which is also electric driven. If I'd have gone with a more primitive system, I probably would have saved $7,000, you know, not having the smart home, you know, heated floors and, you know, heating, and then everything would have been purely driven by gas, but I'd be turning knobs all the time to regulate the temperature, and I couldn't control it by my phone. Now, looking back, this is probably a better way sometimes to stay analog, you know. But I thought I would be cool and be in the future or something. But the future requires a lot of electricity. So, yeah. So it's, again, it's always like, it's just something new. There's no new normal. Nothing is normal here. There's no normal schedule. We don't know what to expect. They were saying Tuesday there would be more attacks. They didn't come, but who knows when they could come. You know, then it just sets everything back. They do all these repairs, then everything gets rolled back a little bit. So hopefully these Iron Dome missiles or Hawk missiles or Norwegian anti-air missiles, air-to-surface or surface-to-air missiles, NSAMs they call them, get over here. They use this Norwegian system, NSAMs. It's developed by American company Raytheon and Norwegian company Kongsberg, like in a joint venture. Those missiles actually protect the White House. They have that system on top of the White House, so obviously they're pretty good. And I think they're probably using some variant of that in Israel for Iron Dome. And that's pretty much what we need here, because it's an impossibility that Ukraine can go inside Belarus and go inside Russia to, you know, proactively, you know, preemptively, I should say, stop the attacks, because you have to destroy stuff behind the lines to stop the soldiers at the border. You know, you have to, supply lines go pretty deep. It's like a tree. What you see on top is only a fraction of what's below the surface, you know, and unfortunately we can't do any digging to the roots, you know, here. So we have to come up with some defensive strategies. So hopefully that stuff gets here. You know, this, I don't know if you're a young person watching this, I would go back and study some analog electrical engineering. It was the hardest class I ever took in college, the one I came closest to failing. And but I think that's probably the most, it used to be the most important skill or most sought after engineering major, you know, in the 80s and 90s were electrical engineers. I think it's going to happen again. Then it became, now it's all like IT specialties like computer science, computer engineering. I mean, there's still mechanical engineers, there's in high demand electrical engineers, chemical engineers, but it was nothing like before. Now everything is gone IT, but I think we need to get back to some robust analog technologies, to back up the grid here and decentralize the grid. I was looking at windmills that go on top of buildings and stuff, but you're lucky if you can get 600 watts out of them. I mean, that's like 6 light bulbs. That's like, keeping a PC going, and you would need a whole bunch of those on top of a building. I'm not quite sure, but I think an apartment, just to keep everything moving, would need with LED lights and energy efficiency, maybe you need, 500-600 watts, continuous generation to keep everything moving. But there's not enough space on the rooftop to supply all the apartments, so that could only be a supplementary system. You'd still have to have a main grid, and then you'd have these supplements to kind of charge batteries and hold you over. And I was reading about batteries, if they're recyclable. If we're doing all this mining and it's just going to run out, and then this whole EV thing will be over. I guess apparently it is. You can recycle batteries, but it's a hell of a process. But then refining aluminum used to be a hell of a process. And actually there was a time aluminum was more expensive than gold. Then a new refining process was discovered in France. And I think there was argument who actually discovered it. It was probably happened at the same time like the telephone. You had Bell and Ericsson at the same time arrived at the same conclusion because everybody was working on this problem. And then all of a sudden aluminum became really cheap because of this new process. So maybe there'll be some revolutions in battery recycling. And then all this stuff that's being mined and brought above ground, it's like a one-time investment. And then for the next, couple 100 or 1,000 years, we just keep recycling this same material, and then we can do decentralized grids and stuff and not have so much risk. I can tell you, people here are just going on with life. I think all the people who've left have already left. I know at my company they're trying to encourage us to move to Albania and offering us $2,000 to do it, but okay, then you go and get back into that routine of paying rent, and I don't know if Albania is probably similar to Turkey. Then you got to deal with the local people. They're always trying to screw you and everything, although Albanians are pretty positive to Americans. But I still think it's probably one of those kind of countries where people are always trying to mess with you and stuff. Here in Ukraine, Western Ukraine, there is like messed up stuff here. People are, messing with you a little bit with the prices, and, you go in the restaurant and, the meat is priced per gram and you want the smallest portion, they throw a little extra in. It happens here, but it's not so bad. It's not so bad. It's definitely not like Norway here where everything is straight. But in Norway, you're going to pay anyway. Here you're saving a lot of money. But, it's not so bad as Turkey here. And, the prices in the store, the prices you pay, everything is transparent that way. But when you go for services like a clinic or something, they always are trying to say, oh, you're a foreigner, you pay the foreigner price. But actually the law here is if you're have a resident permit, then you get the Ukrainian treatment, if you're paying the Ukrainian taxes and, everything like that. So we're fighting with one clinic to get a little bit of money back, on this rule, So, it's, I just want to check in. I can tell you can probably tell my energy levels are a lot lower and everything. It's been very stressful. Having to go to work, run to the office. It's not, I come home to eat lunch, so I'm consciously walking every day. So it's like 1.5 kilometers each way. So I'm building in some exercise in my routine, because when you work in IT, it's just very easy to get glued to the chair. And then that leads to all kinds of other health problems, when you're stuck on the chair and everything. So, and then just having to wake up earlier, because electricity is definitely, there's a pattern. We definitely have it in the mornings. And I think what happens is the businesses, kick on around 9 o'clock, and then they have to, the blackouts become more pronounced. But generally at night it's reliable, and generally early in the morning, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, there's some electricity. We have to kind of work around that. And I tell you, one thing I always dreamed of all my life, because I've been getting up early all my life, and I guess that's not changing. I always wanted to sleep in every day till 9 or 10, but that's not going to happen, unless I do it in a different time zone, which means going to bed at 8 and waking up at 4 or 5. But I think that's an adjustment we're making now, is to try to capture more of this morning availability, this morning electricity. It seems to be better. But yeah, there's just all these things you have to do. You have to take life one day at a time, because it can get to you. If you start thinking about the whole winter ahead of you and all these what ifs that can happen, you'll go nuts. So we just try to get through it one day at a time, focus on the tasks for the day, and then just get to a meal. So you get to breakfast, and then you get to lunch, and then you're halfway through. You kind of celebrate, have a cookie or something at the cafeteria. I had to switch to dark chocolate due to health issues. I had to get off the sugar, so I have to eat that healthy chocolate, which is actually real chocolate, but it doesn't taste as good as the stuff jacked up with the sugar and honey and nuts and everything. Still, the most risky thing you do here is you cross the street. Still, it's very dangerous in Ukraine to cross the street. People are on their phones. They're not looking where they're going. There's just a lot of generally bad drivers here. The standard for a driver's license here is not that high. It's not like Norway. In America, I'll tell you about Norway. I've been driving since I was 15, 16 in Chicago. I drove through New Jersey, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, you name it. I've driven in some of the most scary places in terms of traffic and congestion and accidents, and having to really have a heightened sense of awareness and alert, that because in any 1 second if you look down you could be in an accident. And then you go to Norway, right, where the speed limits are like 35 miles an hour, maximum speed limits like 60 miles an hour, 100 kilometers or 110 on some roads. If they're like really wide and there's no other cars, you can go up to like 65 miles an hour or something. And I still had to take like 20 hours of driving lessons there to pass the exam. It was kind of a racket, because if you want go take the driving test, you have to take a teacher's car so the proctor can stop the car if you're doing something dangerous. And to rent that car, the school requires you to take lessons. And of course you have some guy, half your age, who's growing up in Oslo or in some village in Norway telling you you're a bad driver. It's just like, okay. But it's just a game you gotta play. It's just like, you suck it up. It's just that's how you punch the card and get your checkbox. But just be aware of that, like in Europe, if you're American and moving over here to Europe, you probably may have to retake some driving lessons, just because it's just the way the system works. So I'm almost home. I don't know, I guess the point of today's thing, more than just a video blog or diary, is that life is going on. We're finding new ways to work around these blackouts. There's no way to know what's going to happen in the future, so you just take it one day at a time. There's people are being really good. Like the office where I work has opened up and it's become a place to work. So yeah, returning to office, they have a generator, they have reliable internet. So there is workarounds, but you just have to adjust, and you have to always be in a mindset of constant adjustment. And the only way to cope with that stress is to stay fit, eat healthy. It really helps. You wake up in the morning, you're like, oh man, and you go to the gym, and now you feel like, yeah, I can do anything. Finished a workout this morning. So I got my 10 pull-ups. I used to be able to do like 22, 23 pull-ups when I was younger. I don't know what happened. I guess it's age or something. I'm turned 52 a few weeks ago. You know, so now I can only do like 10 pull-ups. It's still more than the minimum for getting into SEAL training. There they only require you to do 8, I think, is the bare minimum. 8 or 10, I don't know. So, yeah, I'm just trying to, yeah, it's a good exercise. The pull-up, the squat, the military press, and then just some jogging on the treadmill to build up the cardio. And then, yeah, you don't need to go long. You just do like 30, 40 minutes all together. Even 25, 30 is enough if you just keep moving without any breaks. And then you got to keep walking throughout the day. But yeah, it's an interesting life here. And but tomorrow I'll just talk about like what happens if we had to move to Europe. Like this whole starting over thing is just a bit much. It's a bit much to think about. You know, like having to go and find an apartment, pay a deposit, buy cookware, get new blankets, set up internet service. You know, just all that. I guess those are just small things, and you get through it. But it's a bit overwhelming. You know, have to live in an Airbnb for 2 weeks while you apartment hunt. You know, it's just life at this age. You're supposed to be like on Easy Street. And I thought this was going to be Easy Street, but it's a different kind of Easy Street. You know, it's yeah, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's definitely a street. But anyway, you all take care, and we'll see you next time.